up, everybody? It's your boy Season. So today we've got another Gundam metal build review. We're going to be taking a look at the Hi-ν Gundam Metal Build Expo 2026 edition. So we're going to be taking a look at this today. Let's not waste any more time. Let's go. So let's see what we have inside, shall we? So first, of course, we've got the manual, so that's pretty typical. Let's see what we've got here. Now, a lot of this is I've covered before. It looks like you have the back thrusters there with the shield. You have the plethora of hands here with the backpack for the Hi-ν. So you have that. This is the new part. So this is so you can do the movie version of the new Gundam, that setup. So these two parts here are the new parts there. It looks like you got an extra part for this stand here. So you've got that. Let's see what else we've got. We've got the funnels. So in a solid, it's a very bluish purple. So you got that. You've got the beam sabers there. We're used to seeing this with the Hi-ν, so I don't see anything else there. And then we have the new Gundam here. So let's go ahead and take him out. Now this is not gonna be a traditional review. This is gonna be more of a comparison review like I did with the Destiny Soul Red and the original Destiny. So it's gonna be kind of more like that, but just so we can see what we've got here. Let's go ahead and pick him up. Of course, they've gotten rid of the styrofoam. I do like that, it's not as messy. So you do have the new Hi-ν, I should say, Gundam here. It looks very, very similar. He's got a little bib around his collar there. So he looks really, really good, I must admit. So what we'll do is we'll put all of this stuff on him and see what he looks like. So let's take a look at this Hi-ν. Now, look at this. I feel like I'm suffering from deja vu. Considering that I just did the review for this last year, it was roughly around this time last year. And it's interesting to see the upgraded version, so to speak, of the Hi-ν. The first thing I want to say is that it definitely is an amazing sculpt. I think that the original sculpt looks amazing, and the fact that you've got this blue here is interesting. I will say that it's an interesting blend because to me, at least to my eye, I know on camera that it looks way bluer than it actually is to me. This part, like if you look at this arm part here, this is more of a blue color. But if you look up here, this reminds me of the original purple color of the original Hi-ν. So once we get the original Hi-ν out and kind of see them both standing side by side, I'll be able to point out the differences a little bit better. Now, of course, has not fixed this issue with his balance with the rocket boosters on there. It has not fixed that at all, but we do know that you can separate these two. So I think that will help out a little bit, and we'll kind of go through that a little bit later. But I would say overall, just at first glance, I think that it looks spectacular. And sometimes when you buy as many metal builds as I have, sometimes you kind of forget how good these things were when they first came out. I will say that the funnels here are definitely a lot easier to pull on and off. I think that that is really good because the first one was extremely hard to pull the funnels out, but overall it's pretty much the exact same thing. So at first glance, now there are a little bit slight differences with the decals and stuff, but we'll get into that here a little bit later. But I just wanted to show you what my first impressions were out of the box. And out of the box, I feel like if you bought this one and you own the original, congratulations, you've bought the same thing twice. Now, does that mean that this is not worth buying? We'll kind of get through that in the review. But I think overall, I still like how it looks. It's an amazing sculpt for the Hi-ν. So here we have the only real major difference between this release and the previous Hi-ν release, which is the shield. Now, this is the new shield with the blue version of the Hi-ν, and then this is the version with the Hyper Mega Launcher that you get the option set. So you have this one, these are slightly different. This one has more of the Armoro A in it to where this one is a little bit different, but it's pretty close, but not exactly the same. And then of course, we have the infamous polka dot shield here that comes with the original release. And other than that, that's really it as far as differences. The other differences are very minuscule. It's almost not even worth talking about, but you can kind of see the differences there. So you got a little bit different color here in the back of the shield compared to these two. These two are pretty much the same as far as the color palette there. This is a little bit more grayish purple. This is a more grayish blue for these two, almost a teal color. So you do have those, but that pretty much is the only real difference as far as accessories with this new version of the Hi-ν. You will have a couple of differences here. These are the bazookas for the Hi-ν, both versions. There's really, the only difference really is the decals here. All right, they still both bend. All right, so you just have to push this up and then boom, like this. And so they're pretty much the same. And I will say that the original, which is the one on top here, this one has more of a, I would say almost like an off-white, to where this is a pure white here. And other than that decal look there, but other than that, that's pretty much it for those. So that's really the only differences that I'm going to cover, just because there's not really that much to talk about here. But what we'll do next is we'll get the original Hi-ν out and we'll take a look at the two standing side by side. And there's one last thing that I wanted to talk about in regards to the differences between the two versions. And the difference here is the connection piece for the stand. Now, this is the original here on the right. This is the Expo 2026 version on the left. And this one has die cast here on these pegs here. That is a really good thing. We saw that with the Metal Build God Gundam, and I'm hoping that Bandai continues to do that as we go forward in the line, just because as metal builds start to get heavier and they start to get bigger, you know, if we ever get a Metal Build KC or XC Gundam, you're going to need as much metal as you can so these parts and pegs don't break. And so I think that that is a really good sign. We saw that in the Metal Build God Gundam from last year. We're seeing it in the Hi-ν now. So hopefully Bandai will continue to put the die cast metal parts here in the stands going forward. So here we have the two Hi-ν standing side by side. Now, it'll be interesting to see if you can figure out which one is which. I'll give you a second. So here is the original release, and this is the new Expo 2026 release here. Now, the differences to me, at least in my eye, is that they're very, very subtle differences. Number one, the color palettes are pretty similar, but this is a bluish, so it's like a metallic blue with a hint of purple here, to where this is all purple. There's no mistaking that this is purple here. You have subtle changes in the white. This is more of an off-white here on the original, to where it's more of a, I'll say like a cool white. The decals are pretty much almost identical. The Armoro, it's slightly different, but not by much. This one has a decal here on the shoulder here, to where this one on the blue one does not. The differences to me are so minute. You've got decals here in the upper chest area, right below the vents. They're slightly in different places. You have the major one here is that the Londo Bell here on the Expo 2026 version versus there's no Londo Bell insignia here on the original. Also, you've got the Unit 1 or Unit 01 here on the knee, to where you do not have that on the Expo 2026 version. So it's really just a color swap, and you do have slight variations with the actual decals. Now let's turn it around and we'll kind of see the differences from there. Hopefully these don't fall off. And both of them, if you can look at them side by side, they're both doing the Michael Jackson lean there, but it's not that bad. And we'll kind of go through the rocket boosters and that stuff here in a little bit, but let's take a look at the back here so you can kind of see the differences here. Hopefully nothing falls over. So what you have here on the fin funnels is that you've got a solid blue here. This is a metallic blue with a hint of purple up in here, to where you have more of a like a faded pattern. I actually like this pattern a little bit more. I remember on the master grade that putting the decals on, because they did this by decal on the fin funnels for the master grade, or the Verka, I think it was the Verka one. And I just like this. I think this pattern is a little bit more striking than just the solid blue. Not to say that there's anything wrong with the solid blue, but that's pretty much it. The rocket boosters for the most part look the same. I would say that the Expo 2026 version, you have a little bit gold here on the rocket boosters. That's pretty much the only change, to where this one is more of like a metallic gray here and here. So that's really the only differences here. Now, the interesting thing about the backpack, and this was one of the original release's major flaws, is that it was super difficult to get the fin funnels off of the original version. Compared to the new Expo 2026 version, they've made that a lot easier. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually do this on camera. We're gonna pull one of these fin funnels off and see if we can do it without it falling over. So even though it's still a snug fit here on the funnel, it's a lot easier. And then let's take a look at, pull off the one on the original. And I have a feeling that this one's gonna be extremely difficult. Just like that. All right, and then you've got that. So, and then if you look at the funnels here, this is the Expo 2026 version. This is the original. You can tell that the difference is that on this little lip here, where it actually grabs hold of the plastic, this has been thinned, all right, compared to this one. This one was super thick, and so it was a pain in the butt to get on and off. But other than that, the funnels pretty much look the same. You've got a slight variation in the decal work, okay, to where with this one, you don't really have much decals. You only have them at the bottom here, to where here you have decals kind of going all the way throughout this. So, and then you've got the decals there on the back. So as you can see, it's a slight variation, but nothing to write home about. And then let's open these up and see if there's any differences there. And I would say no. I would say that the differences is that this has a more metallic brown, to where this is more of a metallic dark gray. But other than that, I would say that it's pretty similar. You've got a little bit slightly different decals here on the original versus the Expo 2026 version there. So other than that, I would say that it's pretty much the same. So let's see if we can put them back on, and we'll see what we can do there. So let's go ahead and give me the blue one here, and let's push this back on. And you see that one goes on a lot easier than the original, because I remember the original always likes to fight me. Now the key to putting the funnels on is trying to keep this gray part here straight, because that can be much of a problem, especially with the lips being so thick, because it wants to move as you're trying to put it in there. But let's see what we can do here. If I can put this on camera, let's see. And as you see, it's moving all around. That was the major issue that we had. And as you see, yep, that wants to fight me. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do this off camera and try to put this one back on, and we'll be back right after this quick break. And we're back. So it wasn't that it took me that much longer to put the funnel on. It was just that I needed to bring it closer to my face so I could actually try to have it to where it was straight, because this one, it's just a lot more difficult to get the funnels on. It's not impossible, but you do have to work at it a little bit. So now that we're kind of done with the funnels, at least this version of the funnels, let's take a look at the rocket boosters. Now, the one thing that I said about the original is that the long rocket boosters, as you see, go almost to the ground here. And actually, let's lower that so you can see that. So they go lower to the ground. Let's go ahead and have that where that can focus there. There we go. So as you can see, they're lower to the ground. So they're right at the top of his heel on his foot. So these are extremely long. And the thing about that is that when you have these kind of long rocket boosters, it makes the Hi-ν very unstable when it comes to standing, because he's got so much weight, because he's got all the weight of the funnels, the backpack, and the rocket boosters. And generally, as you see, this is probably the best way to have him displayed if you're gonna have the long rocket boosters, is have him to where the rocket boosters are totally pointing down, versus if you had them up, because in a lot of the illustrations, the rocket boosters would be out, because of course they're going to be going outward. So that makes sense, but just due to its stability. The one thing that appealed to me about the Expo 2026 version was the fact that you could detach the rocket boosters. Now, after I did my original video of the Hi-ν, I had forgot that this version of the Hi-ν had the same thing. You can detach the rocket boosters. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these rocket boosters, we're going to take the extensions out. All right, and then we can pull this out, and then those go back in. And I think that will fix any of the stability problems that you have with him. Let me make sure I can get this in there straight. All right, so we've shortened the rocket boosters there. Let's go ahead and do that one too. Hopefully I don't have to pull this one out. There we go. And that will help with his stability dramatically. So I would say if you're gonna have him in a standing pose, you probably definitely wanna have the shortened rocket boosters, because that will kind of get rid of the stability problems that I had with either version. So let's do it on the older version that I did not remember when I did the review, but it should work the exact same way. And let's pull that off and pull this one off. All right, and then that really cancels any stability problems that he had. And I think both of those look very, very good. You could actually have these sticking out, and that's not going to affect his stability at all. I would say, generally speaking, that they're pretty much similar. You have the red ring around the thruster bells here, and you have the same here. It's just a slight color variation between, this is more like a bronzish brown, a metallic version, and this is more of like a dark gray there. So I really do like that. I think that that does help the Hi-ν quite a bit. And that was the major flaw that I had with him in the original video, if you go back and watch it, that I shot last year. So I think overall, I think that it's really, really good. I think the comparison between the two. Now, this is the thing. If you own this one, don't feel bad that you don't have this one. And I'll get more into that with final thoughts. Don't feel bad or feel like you need to get the Expo 2026 version unless you really just want the alternate version of the fin funnels, and we'll kind of go through that here a little later. But these two are practically the same. They're really just color swaps. You have slight variations in the decals, but this one was a really good metal build anyways. And so yes, they've made subtle improvements to the new version, but to me, it's nothing worth spending $300, $400 for. Definitely not that. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna take a look at the alternate form of the fin funnels, and we'll do that next. So now we're gonna get into the real reason why I wanted this guy, and that is the alternate version of the fin funnel setup. So would I say that it makes him unstable? Not really. You just kind of have to work with his feet a little bit because he is a bigger mobile suit. And of course, with all of this weight on the back, that's just going to make him unstable, generally speaking. But I think that overall, I think that it still looks really, really good depending on how you want to pose him. But I do like this setup. I wish Bandai would just go ahead and give us a new Gundam instead of doing this kind of variation that we've never had before, even though that is kind of indicative of the metal build line. They do kind of give us something new and unique, but I'll get into that in final thoughts. But you can do this. You also can do this with the original. So what I'll do is I'll cut away and I'll put all of the funnels on the original version to see how that looks. So here we have the original Hi-ν version with the new fin funnel armaments on. I think that this one actually looks a little bit more striking than the blue one does, just because of the faded pattern here. I think that that looks really, really good. But I think that I do like the fact that you can do this with the original. So if you do decide to buy both versions, you can have one in its traditional armament style, and then you can have this one. Now, I don't know why they won't just give us a new, but like I said, I'll get into that here in final thoughts. But I think overall, I really do like how this looks. I think that this looks spectacular. So depending on which way that you want it done, either way will work. And I will say that the color here, it's not so different that it doesn't look right. I would say that because this is like a darkish blue, gray, purple. So to me, the color is subtle enough that it doesn't contrast between the funnel colors and this, to where this fits more of the blue version or the Expo 2026 version a little bit better. But I think that you could still get away with this and nobody would think that this was from a different color suit. So I think that that is really cool. So I do like the fact that you can have them set up in both ways. Now, if they had given us a double fin funnel set, now we're talking, right? Even though you would need way more funnels than the original 6 that we got, you would need 12, right? But I think that it's an interesting setup. Just depending on which version that you want, you can go with the original or you can go with the Expo 2026. But we'll kind of get into this discussion. So let's get to final thoughts. So last thoughts on this guy. The Metal Build Hi-ν Gundam, the Gundam Expo 2026, or the Metal Build Gundam Expo 2026 version. Now, this is a very interesting release. Number one, I'm not really even sure what the original color is for the new Gundam. I've heard some people say it's the purple version. I've heard some people say it's the blue version. I'm not really sure. I have read Torchica's Children, and I think that one was blue, but of course the manga is in black and white, and so I don't really know what the color is. But this is an interesting hybrid of the two colors because there is blue and purple in here, but I'll get to why I think they did that a little bit later. Now, if you are someone who already owns the Metal Build Hi-ν, I would say congratulations, you've bought the same thing twice. Really, the only major difference as to why you would want this is because it has the alternate fin funnel setup that the movie version of the new Gundam had. And you have to decide for yourself whether or not that is worth it for you. Really, we just need a new Gundam. I don't know why Bandai keeps holding off on the new Gundam. And even though I think this is a very interesting setup, you could have done a couple of different variations because there are a ton of variations of the new and the Hi-ν. And I've seen a Hi-ν that had the new Gundam's colors with the black, white, and orange and all of that. And I think that that one looked spectacular. And I would have loved to have seen this version done in the new Gundam's colors. I think that that would have been interesting to have. So also, I think that we know that we're getting a heavy weapon system and the Hyper Mega Bazooka launcher. They have already announced that, and I am glad, kudos to Bandai, that they finally have listened and I have decided that they're going to release that. Now, that's going to be interesting because that's going to add significant weight to this guy who is already heavy and already a little bit on the unstable side, even with the shortened rocket boosters, even though he definitely stands better than when he has the long versions of the rocket booster on. When you start adding the heavy weapons, that's going to add more weight. And so I'm just not sure how they're going to do that. And I also think that that's the reason why there's a hint of purple in here, because when I'm looking at it in my eye, even though on camera it looks like it's totally blue, there is a hint of purple here. And I think they probably did that so when they do release the heavy weapon system or the updated version of the Hyper Mega Bazooka launcher, that there won't be that much contrast as far as the color. So you might be able to use it for the old one and this one. We don't really know yet, as we have not seen a prototype of it yet, but that is my guess as to why this one has purple in it. So the question really is, who is this for? And to be honest, it really depends, right? If you are someone who did not get the original, the purple Hi-ν, then I would say absolutely get this one. It does everything that the original one did, plus you have an alternate fin funnel setup. Now, I don't know how important that is to you, but if that is something that you like, then absolutely get this one. There's absolutely no reason to get the original now that this one has been released if you did not buy the original. If you are someone who has to have blue, then of course you're gonna wanna get this one. Now, the thing about it is that with the version of the blue Hi-ν that I've seen, at least on, as far as the fin funnel colors, it actually has more of the gradient color of the original one that we got. So it's interesting that they went solid blue with this one. But if you are someone who you just like the blue version of the Hi-ν, then absolutely yes, go ahead and pick this up. You really don't have any choice, right? If you are someone that has to have the new Gundam setup, and that is your major selling point, then yes, because you're not going to be able to do that on the original unless you know how to 3D print parts. And that's not going to be very easy because of how the connection works, and you're going to have to do another version of the backpack. So can it be done? Yeah, with a lot of time and patience, but I don't know if it would be worth it from a financial standpoint. Now, maybe a third party will do that. I'm not sure. As of now, this is the only version or the only way to get this new Gundam setup of the fin funnels. It's really up to your personal preference as far as what you want out of this guy. Now, for the owners of the original, if you want the movie version of the new Gundam, the fin funnel setup, then you have to get it. There's no other way around it. That's the only way that you'll be able to get it. If that is not a big deal for you, then there's absolutely no reason to get this. It costs too much to get it if you already own it. It doesn't do anything that much better than the original other than the alternate setup. And even though I think the alternated setup is nice, is it $400 plus nice? And the answer to me is no. Of course, this is all up to you as the buyer, but I do have to speak truthfully as someone who spends a lot. You want your money to go as far as you can, and I'm just not sure that this is one that you would want to rebuy, especially if you already own the original. I just don't really see the point. And now if you can get it at retail in Japan for like $275, $300, now that's a totally different story for the original owners of the Hi-ν. If you're someone that doesn't mind dropping $250, $275, even $300 to get another variant like this, then you absolutely go ahead. But if you're spending $400 plus in the US, unless this is like your #1 favorite mobile suit, I would say no. But I am not without solutions. I think that this is a very odd release that Bandai released, but I think that you could have done a little bit more with this that would have made this more appealing to someone who's already bought the original. First off, you could have gave us a double fin funnel set and I would have bought that immediately. And I think that that would force all the people who bought the original to get this one, because you would have even more that you could do with it. A double fin funnel set with this version of the fin funnel setup from the movie version of the new, I mean, that would be hard for anybody to resist. You also could have updated the neck, because the neck, because of the shape of the head, and I talked about this in the original New Gundam review, that his neck movement is very limited, and you could have updated that, maybe had it to where it could raise up so you could actually do looking down poses and things of that nature. That would have been an interesting update if you could have done that. Also, we didn't get the blue beam sabers with this set, and I know with the blue version of the Hi-ν, he usually comes with blue beam sabers, and I'm shocked that they really didn't add that with us. They just gave us the original pink one. So I think that Bandai, that was a little bit of a letdown, and I think that if you had added those things, this would have made it more enticing to someone who's already bought the original. And and add more effect parts for the news. I don't know why that they don't add effect parts for metal builds like they do with Metal Robot Spirits or even the real grades, because the real grade has a really good option set that has a lot of the special effect parts for the fin funnels. You could have thrown that in, and that would have made it worth the $400+ that you guys are charging, especially in the US. So it really comes down to personal preference. Now, does this change my scoring now that I know that the rocket boosters can be shortened on the original? For that review, I would say, yeah, it would probably go in the 9.3, 9.4 range. So that's probably what I would give this guy as well. If I was going to score him. This is a little bit different of a review than I normally do, because this is more of a comparison video than an actual review. So I think that if you are someone that loves the new, it's really up to you as far as what you want to do with it. But anyway, so that's what I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for watching the video. I know that this was a little bit longer of a final thoughts, but there was a lot of stuff that I wanted to talk about when it came to this guy, and to really kind of give you guys as much information as I could. But thank you guys for watching the video. If you could like, comment, subscribe to the channel, I would appreciate it. Send this one out to all of the Gundam fans, all of the Hi-ν Gundam fans, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.